right, guys, thanks for coming out. The next installment of the MI Conversation series. So help me welcome to the stage our host for the night, Mr. Native Wayne Jobson, and our guest, Mr. Nick Hexum.
What's up?
Welcome to the Musicians Institute Conversation Series with Native Wayne, and we're honored today to have with us wicked musician, singer, songwriter, producer from 311. Let's hear it for Nick Hexum.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. So Nick, let's go back to the early days. Growing up in Omaha, Nebraska, what was the music scene like there?
You know, growing up in Omaha, it was a little cooler than people would imagine. There was like a small punk rock scene and ska bands, and there was like one record store downtown where we would go and comb through all the vinyl and you know, get all the new music. But it's crazy to think how much easier it is to find out about new music now than it was back then. We were just, you know, trying to get any little crumb. But first band, you know, my musical history, I started playing piano when I was 5 years old, doing classical piano, and then when I was 12, I switched to guitar, and then I started having bands around 14. You know, I had to have my mom drive me over to someone's house for band practice, and just doing covers, you know, I guess. So in the mid-'80s, so we were playing like Police songs and whatever new wave at the time, and then in high school we had a band called the Eds with me and Tim Mahoney, and that's kind of definitely the longest musical relationship I've ever had is with him. And then right towards the end of high school, we hooked up with Chad Sexton, and that's when we started. That's kind of the birth of the 311 sound, where we got into combining, you know, funk and hip hop and punk rock energy, and you know, we loved everything, jazz, you name it, and definitely reggae music was always been a huge ingredient, and the rest is history. But you know, Omaha was cool, and it was a great place to hone our chops, because there was no preset music scene that was telling us, like, you know, this is the Omaha sound or whatever. We just kind of made it up as we went, and talking to other bands that tour a lot, and they'll tell you that Omaha crowds will give you a lot of energy back, and that was what we had. We were like this local band that was packing places, you know, playing every Monday night. We had this all ages show at a place called the Ranch Bowl, which is they had a bowling alley and like this entertainment center, and these crazy mosh pits that would go on at these all ages shows every Monday night. So it was a great launching pad for us, and you know, Omaha's a good place to be from. It's nice to visit, but I've been out here in Cali for about 20 years straight.
Okay, man. And tell us about where did you come up with the name 311, man? Tell us about forming the band.
Well, the band was called Unity in like '88 and '89. That was with me and Tim and Chad and a couple other guys, and then, you know, I was playing bass at the time, and I was like, I really just want to focus on singing, and me and Chad were out here in LA for about a year and a half, and things weren't really panning out for us at the time. We realized, you know, we have a lot of fans in Omaha. Let's go back there and kind of start over. And then Chad met Peanut and Essay when Chad went to school for a little bit, and so I was traveling around Europe and screwing around and, you know, just having fun, and I called Chad and said, you know, let's let's get the music going again. He's like, I got a great bass player here, and so you can just focus on singing. And we're performing a gig as the Fish Hippos. And I was like, I would love to come back and be in the band, but we got to change the name. I can't be in the Fish Hippos. And so Peanut said, well, I did a talent show under the name 311. And I was like, I love it. I don't know what it means. It's great. Let's be that. And then he was like, well, it's the police code for indecent exposure. And I was like, I still love it. That's great. Let's use it. So, there'd been for a long time we didn't explain how we got the name. We just let people come up with their many different stories, and some of the meanings that people put on them were ridiculous and stupid. So we came out like, this is the story. There was one of Peanut's friends was arrested for skinny dipping in a public pool, and was brought home to his mom in handcuffs and naked out to the front door, and then was given a ticket for indecent exposure. And the code for that crime was 311. So that was the real story behind the name.
Wicked, man. And was it tough getting your start? Because I knew you recorded your first album, your first EP called Downstairs in Your Basement.
Yep. Yeah, we recorded, like, we'd have like one mic on the drums, and like the sounds that we got were actually pretty amazing, but there was just so much energy that we had back then. And then we saved up money from our local shows to record at like a good studio in Omaha. And then we were the first local band to actually record to CD. Like, that was a huge thing in 1990. Like, you guys put out a CD, and then we put out 3 records on our own, 2 of them to tape only, and 1 made it to CD. And then we were able to take the sales figures that we had. Like, I brought a chart to a label and said, here's Michael Jackson at number 2 and 311 at number 1. And we were basically, I don't think we were signed because they loved our music, but they could just see that we had something that people were really connecting with. And obviously we were selling stuff on our own. So, it was really definitely a grassroots thing. And so we moved out to Omaha. I mean, we moved from Omaha to Los Angeles in '92, but the truth is, we got signed from the demos and stuff we had done in Omaha. So we thought we need to move out to the big city, but the truth is that it didn't matter. But what was cool is that it just made it so we focused 100%. We just practiced all the time at a little house out in Van Nuys, and tried to grow our own weed and played basketball and practiced music over and on. It was a cool bonding experience. Like, we were going for it. But we got signed off stuff we had done in Omaha, and we went back to Omaha to have like a showcase concert so they could see us live, and because we didn't have any fans out here yet. And then we made our first album with Eddie Offord, who he did a lot of like prog music, like Yes and Emerson, Lake and Palmer, and cool, like, progressive music. And he had heard our demo had been passed around through different managers at the time, and so he told this Capricorn Records that was interested. He said, I'd love to produce their debut album, and they were like, well, if Eddie's on board, and we can tell these guys are selling records on their own. So they gave us a shot and signed us. And it was kind of at that time it was like a southern rock label. Like, they had made their mark with like Allman Brothers and Dixie Dregs and stuff like that. And but they were affiliated with Warner Brothers, so we were like, well, it's a major label. This is our chance. Let's go for it. And the great thing about Capricorn Records is that they promised us 2 records up front, so it wasn't just like, throw it at the wall and see if it sticks. There was like a development plan, and they knew that we were going to make it through touring, and they gave like a long, steady, slow we wanted to make big videos and stuff like that at the time, but they were smart to say, you guys just go out and get in the van, and that's what we did, and just building it up one fan at a time. We didn't have much help from radio, or definitely no press at all at that time. It was just all through word of mouth, and we'd play at some crappy little bar, and the next time we come through town, there would be 5 times as many people, and those were some fun days of slugging it out, carrying our own gear, and we were in an RV. We had an RV fire, and the RV burned up, and we narrowly escaped with our lives. But then we just played a show the very next night on borrowed gear, and it's crazy. It's funny to think about. We had like an almanac, a road atlas that would have, all the, and just to think how we made it without GPS, and I was driving the RV, and Tim would be like, I don't know, go left, and we somehow we made it through.
Wow. Yeah, man. So since then, it's been like 23 years and 10 albums, 1 live album. How do you account for the longevity?
Well, a lot of it is we're just very blessed, and there's definitely an element of luck. But I think that we're really dedicated to our musicianship. We really focus on playing our instruments and working on our tones and our chops, and being well rehearsed when we play, and that we always put a lot of energy into our live shows. I mean, that's always been the thing for us, is a very cathartic release and really just exploding when we hit the stage. And I think that was something that set us apart early, and that's something that we keep doing, is just having it be just letting go, and always having high energy shows. But the thanks goes to our fans. We have amazing fans that have stayed with us for a long time, and we don't have to put a lot of pressure and worry about what our single does or whatever, because we know we've got a direct, long relationship with the fans. And but I think also there's just a gratitude that we know we've stumbled on a special chemistry with the 5 guys that we have, and that if you change any one of us, it would definitely not be the same. And so we stay grateful, and some bands start to take things for granted, and we actually talk a lot about, this is so cool that we have this as a day job. We keep focused on that gratitude, and that it keeps us going, and just work hard.
Yeah, man. And like I was telling you earlier, I think that you guys should maybe go in the Guinness Book of Records. It's the only band to have been together for 23 years without changing one member. Tell us about the relationships in the band and how you managed to all stay friends after all that time.
Yeah, like I said, it was just a lucky thing that we stumbled onto, and we knew we had something special early on, and I can tell that it's a good relationship, because I've wanted to strangle every one of the band members, and I've also felt like best friends with every one of the band members, and it just kind of like rotates. Sometimes you'll be like closer with one guy or another, but I've been seeing all the guys over the past few days at the studio. Everyone, even though this is like off time, everyone just kind of finds their way back to start working on their rig or their gear. And I've got a little studio set up upstairs where I'm just wood shedding my guitar and just practicing for hours each day. And so I'm there all the time, and Tim and Chad and Peanut are there. SA's out in Ojai, so he doesn't show up as often, but we get along really well, and it's just a lucky chemistry that we have.
Great, man. And talking about your guitar and your technique, like 30 years later, you're still getting guitar lessons. Do you think it's important for musicians to still keep getting lessons? And I know you practice many hours a day. Tell us about your lessons and how much you practice every day.
Well, yeah, that's something that I kind of, I know there's a lot of MI students here. It's something that I wish I would have done earlier, is to really work on my technique. I think I was focusing more on being a singer and being a writer and just focusing more on the originality and the sort of like, masterminding, like leading the band was like everything that I was doing all the time. And now I've just been really taking time to work on. So much of guitar playing is muscle development and a lot of repetition and working with a metronome and also for me the attitude of remaining teachable to the way you're screwed in music is if you think you don't have anything to learn. So I've kind of worked with a few different guitar teachers over the past few years, and for me the excitement of jamming with different people and just really working on finding my perfect tone that most represents me. And that's been like I love Gibson semi-hollow bodies, the 355, 335. I love to have a single coil pickup in the neck position, and like I'm finding like I bought like 15 different overdrive pedals, and I've finally settled on the one that gets the tone that I love. It's the Analog Man King of Tone pedal. It's just super sweet, and kind of tried a bunch of different amps. Settled on Mesa Boogie as the one that is the most versatile, that can do everything that I want. And it's just the great thing about music is it's just a never-ending journey. And like I said, that's as long as you don't think there's nothing for you to learn, there's always exciting new things to check out. And I've been getting into going through my real book and learning jazz standards, because there's so many chords to know and stay fluid with. And I've been in a lot into funk lately, going back and discovering the meters, and I'd say John Scofield is my current favorite, of just this funky combination of jazz and kind of the funkier side of fusion. And maybe a couple years ago when I talked to you, it was all about reggae music, or I was in a dubstep phase or whatever. Like that's the great thing, is that there's always new frontiers to check out, and that's what I'm into now.
Great, man. I guess all that dedication has shown in the success of almost 9 million albums, 8 top 10 albums, and it's like, as far as records, but then coming on to tours, your summer tour, the Unity Tour, is one of the most successful in the business, selling out like 10,000 to 18,000 seaters across the country. And I know you've had people like Ziggy Marley and the Roots and Sublime, the Wailers opening for you. Do you think it's that positivity and kind of unity that's kept the audiences coming?
Yeah, I think that's just something. The positive vibe is something that we've always kind of been known for and just kind of settled into. And so when we're making the Unity Tour, we always pick someone that fits with that we know would be a lot of fun to go out and see in the summer. And I love playing outdoors. That's something we've toured every summer. We took one summer off back in '98. Other than that, we've toured every summer for usually about 2 months, and just going out and playing the amphitheaters. And it's what we love to do. And we realized, let's make that the focus of our business. Like we'll make the albums and so forth fit around the touring schedule, because ultimately performing live music is the core of what we do. And I think it's unfortunate other bands that might say, well, we're going to see how the album does, and then we'll see if we can tour or whatever, and kind of base it on that. And we just keep that relationship going directly with our fans, and tour no matter what, and make that the focus of what we're doing, because there's something about that communication between the band and the audience. Like it's different every night. Well, also because we switch our set lists up every night, and we have certain improv sections that it's going to be a little different each night because we're jamming. But then just the energy of the crowd is gonna change it from night to night, because when we have sound check, it's kind of dull, and that's kind of like the only part of touring that's really work, is getting maybe we're tired from the night before, dragging our ass, but we always do like a really thorough sound check. But then when the audience gets there and the energy is coming back, it's just they always get you through. Like it's just easy. There's just momentum there, and so it's just like it's an energy exchange. It's back and forth. So, but yeah, we've always had a kind of a party atmosphere to our shows, and that's what the Unity Tour is. And a lot of people come to every Unity show when we come through. Each summer, and it's a really cool thing. And so we change up. We're looking at a few different openers that we're going to take out for this next summer tour, but no announcements yet. But it'll always be a fun one.
Cool, man. And I know 311 have some of the most fanatical fans in the world. Like when you have your big 311 day every year, March the 11th, right? 11th of March. Mm-hmm. You think you've managed to become closer to the fans using all the new internet stuff like Facebook and Twitter and that sort of stuff?
Yeah, I mean, we were always kind of a little ahead of the curve as far as forming a community at 311.com and the bulletin boards, and that was something that we've had going for, I don't know, 15 years probably, and then it's kind of evolved into more to Facebook, and it was MySpace for a while, and now I've been on kind of an early adopter on Twitter, and it's just a nice way. Like you don't have to have a middleman. I remember when we first started out, it would be like, I'd love it if these magazines wanted to let people know what we're doing, and there was gatekeepers before. You'd have to get through. You need a publicist to harangue the magazines to get you to get you in there. But now you don't need that. So a lot of people say, how has the internet changed things? And obviously piracy has hurt music sales quite a bit, but there's so many more positive effects through the democratization of culture, the fact that there's not these gatekeepers between you and your fans anymore, and you can build a one-to-one relationship and be more building a grassroots thing is definitely a positive thing overall. So for me, it's the easiest way to communicate, answer fans' questions and stuff is through Twitter, because if it's like email or it's way too long and it just like a little short little responses and stuff like that, I find it fun.
Cool, man. Then in 95, 311 bought your own recording studio. Were you just like fed up of using other studios, and how has music improved having your own studio and to use it to rehearse and all that sort of stuff?
Yeah, we've always tried to reconsider the established way of doing things, and we realized, well, really good studios cost between $1,000 and $2,000 a day, and then when you're there, you feel this pressure because of the clock's ticking and everything's recoupable, and we realized, look, we can buy equipment and buy our own place and put that money into making a more relaxed environment, so rehearsals can turn into recording, and there's not that sort of that pressure. And so that was kind of just a long learning curve to learn all the equipment and get everything right, and syncing up. We used to having to sync up digital to analog was like a nightmare. When we first started doing that, we would just like have tech hell that we would be stuck in for. But now it's become really easy, and we were actually kind of long holdouts to the analog world. Like Bob Rock finally convinced us that we could make an analog sounding record digitally. But up until Uplifter, every record had been completely analog up to that time. But Bob kind of showed us that there's so much more convenience to it that we could do it digitally. But yeah, the Hive is the name of our studio, and it's kind of the center of everything that we do. It's where I was all day today, and that's a nice thing. Another nice thing about the technology is that there's no excuses. Whether it's making a movie, making an album, you can get it together to get the recording equipment to make a decent sounding thing. Before there was that like, I need to get a deal in order to do this, but now you can be responsible for making the art yourself, and so it's kind of putting more power into the hands of starting out musicians.
Great, man. And 311 have worked with some great producers like Bob Rock, who did Metallica, and Hugh Padgham, who did The Police, and Saint, who did Tool. What have these different producers brought to the sound of 311?
Well, first, the Eddie Offord experience was really great. That our first producer, and then working with Ron St. Germain on our third album. You know, one of our favorite bands of all times was Bad Brains, and you know, he had produced their two seminal albums, and so that was kind of a dream to work with him. And he taught us so much about tones, and you know, he was definitely like a real purist. We were kind of wanting to bring in more sort of digital stuff, but he was, you know, kept it pure for us. And then on sound system, working with Hugh Padgham, The Police and XTC was a big influence on me, and he had done a couple of their best albums, in my opinion, and so I had a lot to learn from Hugh Padgham. And then, but Bob Rock, you know, doing the past two albums with him has been just, he's a really nice person. He's so knowledgeable. Like you can just ask him, like, you know, best wah-wah pedal, and he'll just have like this long explanation, or, you know, tell me about Vox amps. Like, he just has such a wealth of information, and the only problem with that is that once he starts talking to you, you get this like long shopping list of stuff you need to go out and buy because he's telling you all about it. But yeah, he's a good guy, and we were talking about it earlier, and I was mentioning that Bob helped us learn how to communicate and kind of like learn tools from when he had worked with Metallica and had all those therapy sessions when he made that Some Kind of Monster album. Like he would tell us stories. Well, when Metallica, we kind of learned to communicate like this, and, you know, not finger pointing and not being overly critical of each other's ideas, and kind of like checking in to say how you're feeling, so you're not vibing each other out if you're having a bad day or whatever. And so a lot of the experience that he had with that band kind of helped ours by osmosis, and he's a good friend. We stay in touch.
Great, man. And do you think that a band or an artist can produce themselves, or do you need like an independent, objective view?
You know, we produced ourselves in the very early days, and we're definitely capable of it because I produced other artists, and you know, Chad is a really good mixer and engineer, but I think that having that outside perspective is really helpful, and it's also kind of a referee, that because there's always going to be differences of opinion, and so to have somebody to kind of defer to, so to kind of can break any sort of like tie votes or anything like that. It's, you know, we had a saying on the last album, let's just let Bob be Bob. So whatever, you know, just kind of defer to him as much as we can, because, you know, certain people, you know, I myself included, we would call it demoitis, where, but on the demo it sounded like this. We gotta, you know, and you have to learn to let go and open up to the group conscience and the democracy of a band, and be willing to not get your way quite a bit. And that's, in answer to your earlier question, how we've been able to be together for 22 years. It's by learning to let go and compromise, and you know, respect the opinions of your collaborators.
Great, man. And I know you're like a great producer yourself, especially with that soundtrack for the 51st Dates Adam Sandler movie, which was like almost all reggae, and on that you produced like Seal, Jason Mraz, and of course my favorite 311 song, that version of Love Song, which is maybe one of the best reggae covers ever. Absolutely brilliant. What was like working with like Jason Mraz and Seal and the great artists on that soundtrack?
That was an exciting time because the a Hollywood, a studio produced movie, there's such a it's a whole frame of like money and pressure and stuff that like I was totally not used to dealing with. I mean, the any huge album is just a small fraction of the budget of what a movie is. So getting ready to have so much music in that movie, 51st Dates, and dealing with the music supervisors and stuff, it was a lot of pressure and it was pretty exciting. I didn't actually get in the studio with Seal or Jason Mraz because I was making the stuff in the tour bus studio that I had, and like Chad was helping me with mix things in the computer, and then I would send mixes to Holly out here to have people cut the vocals with Seal or Jason Mraz. And I ended up doing 5 songs on that album, and the love song cover was actually a suggestion from Adam Sandler. He was like, Amber is the sound that I want for this movie. And I love The Cure. Maybe you could do a cover of this song. And I had been a huge Cure fan, but I had kind of got out of them by the Disintegration album, so I wasn't really that familiar with that song. So it was a great suggestion by him. And then, but I've always loved, 311 is the focus of what I do, but doing stuff on the side. And I have to take this time to plug something that I did with Wayne. I did a couple remixes for off of songs for Universal Pulse, one for Trouble and one for Weightless, and Wayne does a killer reggae rap vocal on this remix that I did, and we're going to press that to vinyl. I don't know if I told you that yet. That's going to be coming out soon, and so thanks for helping us out with that.
Wicked, man. And obviously you did something right on the 51st Date soundtrack. It was #1 soundtrack in the country, gold album and all that, so maximum respect, man. And then to songwriting. Tell us about the songwriting process. Where do you get the ideas from? Do you do the music first, the lyrics first?
Well, I'd say there's kind of multiple ways that songs come through the band, and sometimes, for me, I found that if I sit down and write the music and the words together, then it's going to be like that, like the freedom that I have from doing that. Like a song like Amber, I really could have only, like that came in just like a 2-hour sort of epiphany, like one weekend morning, I remember, and that was just like something that I heard in my head. But many other great 311 songs would be like a jam session that I would start with, like me and Peanut would get going, or Chad is really fond of, like he makes really complete instrumentals that have usually kind of more like dissonant chord changes and like different sort of key changes, and then we kind of retrofit them with vocals. And in the earlier days, we were doing a lot more rapping, and so it was you can rap over any key, it doesn't matter. But so then now we've kind of taken the approach to go through and change each other's songs more. And like I said, that's the art of compromise and learning to open up to critiques and. But for me, a song needs to be good enough that if you just can play it on acoustic guitar and sing along with it, that's going to carry it, and then if you have a great funky rhythm section going in addition to that, that's killer. But I just keep finding new influences to be inspired by, and I'd say that over the past few years, before I really got into my technique and really woodshedding my guitar playing, I was actually taking songwriting lessons, because I realized there's so many little tricks of, when to use the augmented chord and different things like this that I knew I had a lot more to learn. And, I never want to rest on my laurels. I want to remain teachable as long as I can. And so it's just a never-ending journey.
Yeah, man. And do you think how have we seen the business change over the past 20 years? Is it harder to make it now? And do you have any advice for up-and-coming musicians?
Oh, man. Well, I think that our approach has always been to practice a lot, and you know that there's just no question that the 10,000 hours. I'm sure you talk about that quite a bit at MI, and you know putting in the time. That really hard work is more important than any sort of natural gift, and you know. And also just honing your originality, finding that thing that's weird and different about you. And you know, naturally, you're gonna start out with some amount of imitation. I mean, when we were in the early days trying to sound like, you know, Bad Brains or 24/7 Spies, or you know, the Chili Peppers were an early influence. I mean, that stuff, that's going to happen for anybody. You got to learn by copying your heroes, and then finding that thing that's your niche, that's different, and getting as weird as you can with your own personal style is definitely, you know, what I'm always kind of recommending is, you know, when we're in the band situation, I'll be like, that's more 311-y if we do it off this way, and get the weird things in there. And that's, I put it in a lyric in one of our last, in 2 albums ago. I said, we only enter in one contest that we made up ourselves. That's to be the 311ist. You know, we just want to be as unique and individual as we can. And you know, people always tell me, like, I'm excited to see where you guys go next. I'm like, I am too, because I have no idea how it's going to turn out when the 5 of us get together. So, you know, just being, you know, being humble enough to take opinions from other people and collaborate, and not be a control freak is really the key to learning from other people and to keep expanding.
Great, man. And tell us about the upcoming 311 Caribbean cruise. You're going to be going to a private island in the Bahamas?
Yeah, well, first, like you mentioned, 311 Days coming up on March 11th and 12th. It's our first time ever splitting it into 2 nights, and that's what we're in the midst of right now, is planning. You know, we always have a lot of special stuff for that, and that's kind of our chance to make a lot of our rock and roll dreams come true with this crazy expensive, like, production and stuff that, you know, we do for those shows. And it's always a really long show. It's kind of a marathon for us. And then the cruise, that was a new thing that we tried out last year, and we went down to Turks and Caicos and played like 3 shows on the boat, and we let the fans kind of vote for which songs they wanted to hear. And we're doing that again in May, and there's not a ton left, but there are still, both for 311 Day and the cruise. Like I said, it's in May, and it's going down to a private island, and we've got a lot of cool stuff planned for that too. So, I mean, so many people on the cruise. It's kind of just like a convention of like-minded people. I mean, that's what we love to kind of foster and is that it's not just, you're not just there to watch a band. It's a community. It's a happening. It's like a you know, an experience about the interaction with other fans and so forth. And so many people on the cruise were like, this is the most fun I've ever had, because you just, everywhere you go, like, hey, where are you from? And there's just sort of a open positivity in, you know, the 311 Nation, we call it. And so we're excited for those events. And then, of course, we always do our summer tour.
Great, man. I know there's a lot of people online sending in questions. We have some online questions.
Yeah, we do.
Bring it.
So, Nick, first off, we got a ton of 311 fans online, so say what's up to them real quick.
What's up, 311 fans? Thanks for the support. Thanks for tuning in.
Cool.
We
So,
love
Nick,
you.
2012, what are the plans for a new record, possibly? You were talking about you guys have been in the studio.
You know, I think we haven't worked on anything yet, so it would be tough to say that it's definitely going to come out this year, but we're not going to wait as long as we have between some albums in the past. But you know, I think it is important to take a little bit of downtime, because if you go right back in, it might sound too similar. So we're kind of in this gestation period, and I want to make sure that we come out with something that blows people's minds enough. So we're kind of in this sort of everyone's off doing their own thing and regrouping phase. So, and you need to have that in order to grow. So we're not going to rush it, but definitely new music coming eventually.
All right, very cool. And we got a follower who wants to know any DVD release of Powwow coming out.
I would like to see that happen. I will vote for it, I promise.
Okay. All right, you touched a little bit on social media and how it's kind of changed your relationship with the fans. The whole band is into Twitter. Can you talk a little bit more about, like, do you get back to people when they hit you guys up? How's that affected the way you guys communicate with your fans, I guess?
Well, a lot of it is me retweeting things that people say or photos that they make or like a new tattoo that they'll have, or so it's kind of a lot of it is me, like, you know, repeating what other people are saying on there. But Peanut is the master of keeping in touch with our fans. I'm not like a total tweet whore, but Peanut, he will respond to you instantly if you tweet a question. But he and I are the only ones that are on there on Twitter right now, and I find that's definitely the easiest way to answer questions. So hit me up. It's at Nick Hexum.
Cool. Nick, you guys have been putting out records for obviously a good bit, and you were in the major label system for a while there, and now you guys are more independent. How's that changed your relationship, or your mindset as a band? Is there as much pressure, or how does that work for you guys, being more independent, I guess, now?
I mean, it's definitely more freedom to have everything in-house. You know, we've kept as many things as we could back over the years, like as far as like not doing a publishing deal and not doing a merch deal and these things, so we could make sure that we had say in all that stuff, and we're as responsive to our, you know, artistic whims, and as responsive to our fans as we could be without having to get permission from anybody on so many things. And now we realized that it was time to start 311 Records, and I've been really happy with how it's been to have our own label. And you know, I got to hand it to our managers, Adam and Peter Raspler. They have, part of the thing is when you do your own label is that really the management becomes the label, and so they are like working their fingers through the bone all the time, and they're doing a killer job. We've been with them forever, and you know, that's just a great thing about the way music's going, is that you can do your own label and compete with a major label. And I was probably the guy in the band that was the most hesitant to do it, because I knew that we had made so many fans that had heard us first through the radio or a music video or whatever, and I didn't want to totally lose that. But once, you know, I realized that we could get all the promotions and stuff that we would get, and also that we're at a place now that we don't need to worry about getting new fans as much as we just need to keep fostering the excitement of stoking out our existing fan base. So it's been a bit of a sort of a paradigm shift in the philosophy of the band.
Cool. And so would you, you know, tell these guys in the audience, the guys online, like, you know, if you're at that stage and you're ready to kind of start recording and putting music out, is the best way you feel, your opinion at least, to stay independent, or to, you know, I guess maybe 10 years ago was still chasing that deal, chasing the record, you know, that record deal to get in the studio and all that, and I think everything you've kind of talked about tonight sounds more like being independent is the way to go.
I mean, it's just to each individual. You know, I can't. Breaking a band is tough, but the thing is my definite advice is play shows. As long as you can just get out and make exciting live shows, and then whether you have your own label or you sign a deal. I'm not sure which is the best way to go if I was starting out new right now, but I mean, the truth is that you don't need a deal. Like, that's the beautiful thing. And you know, like, was some great movie director was talking about like I was saying earlier, there's no excuses. You don't have to be held back by being told no anymore. And somebody in the early days, they'd say, like, what's your advice for people starting out? And my smart-ass answer was, like, give up. Because if I could convince you to give up, you're never going to make it, because you're going to hear no so many times over and over again. So you have to steel yourself against any kind of discouragement, because, coming out of Omaha, there was a lot of people said, no, it's just, you don't have a chance. But we believed in ourselves, so you have to be ready to just hear no, but just keep going.
And then, speaking of signing, are you guys actively signing bands to 311 Records, or is it just more for you guys?
Yeah, it's really, like, for me, I want my focus to be about music all the time. And so being in the business side of it, I kind of, want to spend most of my day just being a musician. So we don't have any plans right now to sign bands and so forth, because bands can do it themselves,
Cool. All right, let's shift focus here. What are you listening to? What kind of bands, what kind of music, what new bands are on your radar?
Well, like I was mentioning earlier, I've been just all about the funk and jazz. And there was, back in the late 90s, this acid jazz word, but now they don't really use that term anymore. But there's a lot of funky underground music that, like this record I've been spinning for the past few days is a band called the Bamboos. And I've got like a really badass Pandora station that's everything from the Meters to John Schofield to Grey Boy All Stars, Groove Collective, like all these different funk, instrumental mostly. None of it has any vocals. And I'm going to look into like sharing my Pandora station, because I've been thumb upping and downing things so much that it's become like really refined to what I love to hear. And but it's like my daily regimen is I'm going to do about 2.5 hours of like really structured stuff, working with a metronome and different finger exercises and blowing through scales and stuff like that. And then I'll just solo other people over other people's music, play along with jazz standards and stuff. But so I've been in kind of a jazzy world lately, and that's what's turning me on.
Cool. All right, we got an online viewer asking, has becoming a father changed the way you write records? Are you more conscious about the kind of music you guys are putting out? Or you're putting out, I guess, I don't know.
I don't think there's been any kind of editing as far as like cleaning it up or anything. Like I've always felt that, if you over shelter your kids, then that's just going to make that sort of, forbidden cuss words that much more sweet. Like, I definitely feel that there's the feelings from parenting is a joy. Like it's really impossible to describe, but I can tell that those emotions and that sort of natural maturity that's going to come is definitely influencing the lyric writing, and it's just it makes coming home that much more sweet, though. That's for sure.
Very cool. And then we got one last one. Is the 311 cruise coming to the West Coast?
Well, the West Coast has 311 Day. That's in Vegas. So the cruise will be East Coast for now, but you never know in the future. And, I just think that, I love having the Unity tour, but also combining destinations like rock and roll tourism, I call it. Of you traveling to go to whether it's 311 Day or a cruise, or we had our first ever powwow, which was our camping event in the north of Florida, and that was a really cool experience. Like just to see all the energy and the love between the fans, it was really beautiful. It was really hot too. It was like in August in Florida in the heat. So I'd love to do that again, but we're trying to make once in a lifetime experiences, and it's been going good so far. It's I think something we're going to keep doing.
All right, Wayne, we're going to throw it back to you for a couple more and then wrap it up.
Audience, yeah. So, Nick, I know you have 2 daughters now, and you delivered your latest daughter. Are you thinking about giving up rock star to become a midwife?
Oh man, that was just something that, it was had to stay calm, and I learned, since we did home births, I had learned so much on the birth of our first daughter, and I actually, caught the baby when our first daughter came out, but well, that was under the supervision of a midwife. So when we had heard that the second babies come quicker, but we weren't aware of how much quicker sometimes they would come. And so my wife started having contractions, and we called the midwife, and we figured we had a lot of time. And so she was like, well, try and get some sleep, because it was like midnight when she first started having contractions. And then as soon as the sun started coming up, the contractions started coming really fast, and I called her. I was like, you need to get over here, but it just accelerated so quickly, and then all of a sudden I could see that the head was starting to come out, and then the next contraction, boom, the head just popped all the way out, and it was just me and my wife there, and Echo, our first daughter, woke up during that because she could hear all the yelling and carrying on, and so she walks in, and there's like a baby halfway out of mommy. And but the scary thing is that it kind of stalled, like the head kind of stuck, and it didn't come out any further. And I had learned that sometimes it gets caught on the collarbone, and you have to like reach in there and break the collarbone, because it can get stuck. And so I kind of like reached in and kind of like twisted the baby back and forth, and then next contraction, boom, it just all came out. I mean, it wasn't breathing at first because the cord was wrapped around her neck. So I unwrapped it and kind of jiggled her around, and all of a sudden, wah! And it was like, to hear that sound was totally like the greatest moment of my life.
Amazing, man. Any questions from the audience?
You got mics, guys, on the side, on both sides.
Rock the mic.
What's up, Nick?
How you doing?
Good. Been a fan since music. A buddy of mine turned me on to you guys back in '93. Seen you a bunch of times. I actually saw Incubus open for you guys at the Paramount Theater. But you've
Thank
always
you.
had like some esoteric knowledge flowing through some of your songs, some like universal wisdoms. And I was just kind of wondering, like, perhaps some of your favorite authors, and where have you gotten your inspiration for some of that?
Oh man, I mean, I've always tried to stay somewhat spiritually fit, as well as musically and physically and everything. I think it's important to work on your spirit. And for me, Eckhart Tolle and The Power of Now, like the books that he wrote, really, which is, it's kind of a distilling of Buddhism and stuff like that. It really sort of just changed my whole point of view of trying to be as present and in the moment as you can, and learning to not believe your mind all the time and detach from your thoughts. I mean, that's, I guess, my recommended reading in that sort of realm.
I think that's why you guys have always been on my playlist over the years, because of the positive vibe and stuff. I just want to thank you for all the great music you put out.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
How's it going, Nick? My name's Jacob.
Hey,
I just want to say a big fan. Ever since I was a little kid, hearing it from my cousins or anybody, I've always stuck with you guys. I want to know.
thank your cousin for me.
I will. I want to know. Music's not an easy business in any way, whether it's family or any obstacle. I want to know, what was the biggest obstacle that you guys, either you personally or as a band, had to face?
Well, I guess there was. It seemed like there was a lot of resistance to the band. Like, we've never been embraced by the industry. So, we've always had this sort of, this kind of rebellious, like, we're going to have to do it ourselves because no one's going to help us attitude. And, at different times it's been frustrating, like the fact that we couldn't get our albums reviewed or whatever. If we did, it was like super dismissive or whatever. But, then we just realized that it's a quality problem, because we've got so many fans that we don't need that crap anymore. But there was definitely times when it was pretty frustrating, and when the music industry was so different before, that that's again why I have to go back to thanking the fans like you guys, because the only reason that MTV played us was because we were packing shows everywhere we went, and it was like you couldn't resist us any longer. So, it was truly a grassroots movement. So we always keep that in mind when, thinking what do the fans want, because that's why we're here. Thanks.
Thanks. Also, it'd be cool to jam with you guys one day.
That's good. I'm in.
Nick, hey, thanks
Hi.
for coming today. Very
My
cool.
pleasure.
My question is, how do you deal with the stress of being a public figure? Someone that all of us look up to. Some of us at least. How do you deal with that stress?
I mean, I think that I just try and be as much not a public figure as possible. Like, we've always been a band that is known much more for what we do on stage rather than off stage, because when you start to get to be known for any sort of tabloid, any of that kind of stuff, it totally can overshadow the music. So we've always just wanted to be as down to earth as possible and be known for our musicianship. And I don't know, like I live a really normal home life of cooking and going to the grocery store and doing stuff for myself and I'm very, very active, involved parent, and I think it's a bit of a gear shift for me to get ready to do something like this, because I've been so used to just being practicing guitar and being a dad and not. So I was a little nervous coming out here at first, but I'd say don't believe your own press. Don't get into any sort of creating some sort of myth that can't be sustained, because people are going to get sick of that, But you look at someone like John Scofield. He's made like 50 albums because he keeps it about the music. And I just had a chance to go see him a few weeks ago when he was in town, and that's the kind of artist that I look up to. Or someone like Paul Simon. He's been going through so many different musical phases. He'll become inspired by this new region of the world and their music, and just keeping it about the musical journey rather than any sort of the trappings that come along with success, I guess.
What's up, man?
Hey.
I was wondering how you personally deal with feeling burnout, or even as a band, how do you guys deal with writer's block, or you got something in mind that you're really adamant about, but it's not working out, or what I mean?
Yeah, well, I mean, songwriting, just like any other, like a musical instrument, is something that you have to exercise often. And I found that, I need to make writing dates for myself where I'm going to, clear away everything and write. I mean, sometimes the songs will just push their way through your consciousness, and you'll have to write them down. And, but some those are some of the best songs, but other of the real songs that people really connect with come from really difficult writing sessions where you're just and you're with a blank paper and it's just staring at you. And a writer writes always, and that's something that but I also do take time. I have not written a song in a while, but when I get into the mode, I will sometimes start a song every single day, even if half of them are crap and I'm going to throw them away. But I think that what I've learned is that quantity begets quality. So you can't expect to write 5 great songs. You have to write 50 songs and 45 of them be so-so, and out of that, 5 will be really good. So it's definitely just keeping the pen moving, and that's when I guess the spirituality comes in, where I just my job is to just move the pen, and then whether the quality of the music or something is just going to come through, from some other energy, come from the universe. And otherwise you put too much pressure on yourself, and that's when writer's block comes in, is when you're like, me, I've got to, all I got to do is move the pen, and there's going to be some good stuff that's going to come out of that if I keep doing that.
Hi, I was wondering, what's the most meaningful song you've written?
I think that, like, I don't know if it's the most, but like the song Beyond the Gray Sky is a really heartfelt song for me because it was written after the passing of my friend, a guy who took his own life. And, it's kind of a summary of our, kind of fight to keep a positive attitude and seeing beyond the gray sky, seeing beyond the clouds. And it was just a very emotionally cathartic thing for me, and it's a kind of a special thing when we play it live. So that one comes to mind.
First of all, I'd like to say thank you. You and 311 are pretty much one of the main reasons why I'm out here.
Cool,
doing
thanks.
what I'm doing.
Awesome.
Do you ever think about releasing something under just Nick Hexum, like your own solo deal?
I do think it is healthy for band members to do side stuff. I know that S.A.'s getting ready to, he's got a little side project called Ghost Wolf that's I think it's coming out this month. And I definitely encourage that. So I would definitely never say never. There are tons of songs that I've written that have not come out because they didn't gel with the band for one reason or another. And my tastes are super erratic, so yeah, maybe one day. But the focus will always be 311. But that's the great thing about today's technology. You can just put something up, and it doesn't need to be this big, huge push. But for the hardcore fans that want to hear you do some weird folk song, you can just go get it on iTunes or something.
Hey Nick,
How you doing?
what's your favorite movie and why?
Let's see. I suppose if I'm going to give the cool answer, it'd be like Taxi Driver, something like that. I really love those kind of hardcore, gritty movies, for sure, in the past. But I think lately I'm into more like weird stuff, like Adaptation might be one of my favorite movies of all time. I Heart Huckabees was a hilarious movie about existentialism and trying to figure out the whole meaning of the life. And like I could have been a character in that movie with the place I was at a few years ago. Like, why? But why? So those are some that come to mind.
Hi Nick, and I have your DVD, like a live concert, and it's kind of 5 hours long. And I was wondering, how do you prepare? Like, how do you stay healthy to sing? Like, I'm a vocalist, and how do you sing like 5 hours and perform this kind of stuff that long?
Yeah, I guess I didn't talk about vocal technique at all. It's something that I think I sang wrong for quite a long time because I was like, this whole thing about learning to remain teachable and so forth is something that I came to later in life, and I kind of probably reduced my range because I was not like singing right. But so about 7 years ago, I started working with a really good vocal coach, and he helped me learn warm-ups and learn to sing from the right place in my head and not like pull. And so now I always warm up before I sing, no matter what, because it's a completely different, it gets way better after I warm up. So it's only about 20 minutes long, but I do it before every show, no matter what, while I'm getting ready. And but there's a lot of preparation because there's a lot of muscles and stuff you got to get ready. And but I think that the 5-hour show, there's so much energy and excitement from coming back from the fans that it's like there's just some crazy juice running through you. And then like after the show, after the 311-day show, I'm like so wired for about an hour, and then I'll just completely collapse. And you know, that's it's like running a marathon, which I've done too, but it's a lot harder to run a marathon than to do a 5-hour concert, because you're getting that energy back from the fans, and they just get you through. But you know, learning to, you know, obviously if you're here, you're probably learning proper vocal technique. So it's an important thing that I kind of wish I would have done earlier.
Nick, earlier on in your career, you must have made the choice to transition financially from a day job into doing music full time. How did you do that, and what was that like?
Well, yeah, in the late 80s, when I had moved out here, I was working as a waiter, and then once I moved back to Omaha, I didn't have any more day jobs after that, and times were really, really tight, just, you know, staying rent-free at someone's house, and then when we all got a small house together, you know, it's not necessary, but for us, it was like showing complete commitment. And, you know, I probably got kind of stressful on certain members of the band that were like, you know, because we were, you know, eating top ramen all the time or whatever for a while. But, you know, that's part of the test you go through. I don't think it's necessary to completely quit your day job. There's no reason that you can't, you know, do two things. There's plenty of hours in the day, but I don't know. I think that's part of the reason that I stay so grateful, is that I've not had to do anything other than music for 20 years. But it's a tough choice to make, and I guess there's no easy answers.
Great. Yeah, man. Well, special thanks to Nick, and yeah, man, thanks for coming by, and we look forward to the spring tour and the cruise and the Unity tour in the summer.
And thanks to Wayne, my longtime friend, for having me here today.
Maximum respect.